Hey everybody, welcome. My name is Bob Stewart. I've got my friend Grant Gould here today, and we're excited. This is the first time that we've talked about this kind of new thing that we're doing here. We're going to talk today about remarketing and what is remarketing and how it works, and we'll give you guys some examples of some of the campaigns that we're running for people. We'll talk about some of the steps that you would kind of, if you wanted to do this yourself and set out to kind of learn this, we'll at least push you or start you on that path. I'm going to give people a minute to jump in the room here, and I can see people are still kind of pouring in right here at the top of the hour. Do me a favor. Why don't you guys just find the questions area right now on your GoToWebinar control panel there. And why don't you guys check in for me and do me a favor, like tell me, I'm assuming that most of you guys are like sheltered at home, quarantined, whatever they're calling this, right? And so as you check in, I want you to share with me what's one of the simple pleasures of life that you are starting to appreciate a little more right now. Pierre, how you doing, buddy? Like Grant and I were just talking before, and the haircut right now for me is like one of the simple, like in my entire life, just I woke up one day and I'm like, I need a haircut, and I went and got a haircut that day, or maybe I had to like make an appointment for the next day or something. Right now, you guys, like, oh my goodness, I have short hair normally. It's long. Grant, right? My grays are just, these things have a mind of their own. I never knew this, right? They've never gotten this long before. Like, man, what? Okay, yeah. Oh, there we go. Taking listings. Jim says, like, yeah, Curtis, the haircut. Oh, absolutely. Um, awesome. All right. So we got a bunch of you guys. Curtis, thanks. John, Puyallup, Washington. Whoop, whoop. John says he's appreciating his bourbon a little bit more. I bet, because when it runs out, then it's like you gotta get out there and get more, and that's like an adventure, right? So scheduling showings, Angela, right? I love that a lot of you guys miss like the like seemingly simple aspects of real estate that have become much more complex. So Grant, what are you what simple pleasures of life are you kind of either missing right now, or just really really thinking about?
My morning ritual of going to the gym and listening to my podcasts.
That's right. I know that you
Yes.
in the last year or something have really become dedicated to your gym routine. So yeah, that's rough, man. All right. So, but thankfully hopefully anyway, everybody on the call is healthy and your families are healthy. All right, deep breath. So my name is Bob Stewart, and I have my guest here today. His name is Grant Gould. Grant, you have extensive experience in real estate and in real estate marketing. And in fact, are kind of the product of a family that owned an ad agency, right? So you've been in advertising like your entire life. Talk to me just for a minute before we get in here, like about your experience with online advertising, because I'm pretty sure that you were doing some of the stuff I was doing way back in the day before Google even, right? Doing things like Overture and feeding these paid submissions and doing some. So you've been doing this a long time, right?
I have. I actually was one of the early pioneers of trying to figure out how to capitalize on America Online and being able to harvest American Online users by their profiles so that we could spam them. And back then it was allowed. But as well as all the community boards and things like that. So yes, I've been doing it for quite some time, Bob.
So I mean, really, as long as there's been these advertising concepts or these networks of the ability to advertise on the internet, you've had your fingers in there somehow. And up until recently, your role around here, I mean, you have a number of roles, but one of your primary focuses is you run our leads team, where we take budgets from people and we just go out and spend those budgets on things like Google pay-per-click or Facebook ads to drive leads. But not too long ago, Ben came to you and said, hey, let's figure out some kind of an approach that we can start to take, because we have people with really big databases. We have tons of traffic coming to people's websites, and not all that traffic converts into a lead. In fact, it's probably something down around the 10% of the traffic that hits our websites ends up becoming a lead. So we've got all these other, 90% of the people that hit these sites that don't end up, becoming a part of that agent's database. And so we're going to go through remarketing, kind of what it is and what it does. And again, if you guys have questions, feel free to pop in here, and we will, we'll answer those questions either as I see them. I'll stop Grant, or we'll definitely take a little bit of time at the end to walk through. So here's our agenda today. We're just going to, at a high level, what is remarketing? Talk about like why do remarketing? What are some of the benefits? And then we'll give you just some general kind of stats around remarketing and kind of give you a sense for the potential here. And then we'll talk about a couple of actual like case studies. And you guys were the first one, like, thank you for joining us, by the way. You're the first ones that we're kind of talking about this with kind of more broadly. I think we've maybe put something out in masterminds once and allowed people to get on your calendar, Grant. So we've got some people that are doing this. The very first kind of group that we did this with, like many of the kind of firsts around here, was with the Ben Kinney teams, and specifically his team up here in Bellingham, their hub. So we're going to show you some of those case studies. Talk about then kind of, okay, if you had a remarketing, a campaign going in your business, what are some of those leverage points then that you can use, or just things like get it into my listing presentation. We'll talk about some of those things, and then like I said, we're going to talk about how to implement remarketing. It's not going to be a step-by-step tutorial where Grant takes you in and shows you every button he clicks in the back of all the different places that he does this, but we'll at least kind of give you the steps that if you wanted to do this yourself, to give you kind of a path to start to walk down that journey yourself. So that's the agenda today. Grant, does that sound good right there, buddy?
That sounds great.
All right, it better sound great. You put this slide deck together. All right, so first off, Grant, what is remarketing?
So in a nutshell, remarketing is the ads that follow you around the internet. So you look at a pair of shoes or a car or any other furniture or whatever, software, and the next thing it's like your reticular activator went off because you see that product everywhere. So that's at a very high level. That's the best way to describe it. It has a lot of different facets to it, and it's really about branding and nurturing. So it's not like your buyer or seller lead generation program, which is really focused on getting new people, going out and grabbing new people and bringing them into your sphere or into your database. This is about cultivating what you've already got going on in people that you've made contact with.
You're like speaking my love language when you said like you go look at shoes somewhere and then all of a sudden shoes are following you around the internet, and that is actually my life. Like that's my life experience. I love shoes, and so they literally follow me all over the internet. And every time you click on another pair of shoes, it's like an hour later I see that pair of shoes on the side of my Facebook feed or at the in the middle of my Seattle Times as I'm reading on that website or whatever it is. So Grant, I can remember now this concept retargeting has been around for a long time. It's gotten a lot more developed, and now we're able to follow people over to their phones, and there's geofencing. There's all these things that have been introduced, but I can remember clear as day, and this was a long time. This was 2008, I want to say, but I can remember we were looking for some office furniture for our real estate office. And I'd been on this one website and I was looking at this particular couch, and it wasn't a half hour later, I was on another website and there was an ad for the couch, and I was like, oh my, I was just looking at that couch. Like it blew my mind, I ran down and grabbed Jonathan Washburn, my partner at the time. I'm like, dude, come look at this. I brought him in and I'm like, look at this. Like I was just looking at, I showed him the website I was on, and I'm like, and now there's this ad here. And so this has been around a while, and I think we all kind of we all realize this is happening, or at least if we're kind of in tuned at all to what's going on the internet, right? You realize this is happening, and you see this, and you're like tangentially aware of it, right? You kind of know it's happening. That's if you're like somebody like on this call, right? Where you're kind of savvy and you're a business owner and you realize that there's the potential to do these things. A lot of people don't realize though the kind of the intricacies of some of this remarketing strategies and what's actually happening here. And so it's it's cool, and we'll talk about some of the like the ahas and some of the things that we hear our agents being told, right, by these customers, things like, oh my God, you guys advertise everywhere, which isn't actually the case, right? So what do you got here? It's all about the audience.
Sure. So really starts with, again, it's not going out looking for necessarily new people. It's really focused on your core audiences, the people that you've already spent all this time, energy, and money to bring into your world, whether it's the person who's a website visitor who you may have paid for, or you're doing some kind of activity to get people to your website. And as you said earlier, if we're lucky, 10% will convert on a landing page type, campaign. That it's overall, if you look at analytics on a website, on a real estate website, it's probably more down towards 3 or 4% of all traffic that actually converts. That means that 90-something% of the people that come to your website leave without telling you who they are. And so as it illustrates here, it's remarketing is a very powerful way of going after those people after they've left, and trying to get them to come back to your website, which will increase your overall conversions over time. The other, which is, in my opinion, probably the one of the biggest benefits, is the CRM database marketing. So being able to take everybody that's in your CRM, your database, and that has an email, they have to have an email, and then being able to feed those into what are called, Google calls it a custom list, and Facebook calls it a custom audience, and being able to feed them into those systems, and then being able to market to them the same way, where you're able to follow them around. It's a lot of people say they experience like an initial surge because they haven't been opening your emails or paying attention to the other digital things you're doing. Maybe or maybe not. You've sent them some mailers or communicated the old-fashioned way, but most of them are dormant. And so once you engage them again, all of a sudden, they're on their favorite news site, and there's your big banner at the top. So it's like, wow, Grant's come a long ways, from the last time I was dealing with him.
Right, because they think, like, in their head, Grant, it's not just that your banner's at the top of the New York Times, right? Like, they're on the New York Times and Grant's advertising on the New York Times. They don't have any concept that Grant's not at the top of everybody's New York Times. Like, most people don't realize that, right? They just think, holy crap, Grant advertises on the New York Times, right? Like, or Grant advertises in the Bellingham Herald, like, all the time. Like, every time I go there, this guy's on the Bellingham Herald. Like, how much money does this guy spend on advertising, right? And it's not actually, it's not actually that much. It's just that we know that particular person, and we are following him around, for any website he lands on that's powered by Google's display network, which, by the way, is most websites these days. Right? We're going to show there. So why do agents, why did the Ben Kinney team decide, why did Ben come to you and say, we want to do remarketing?
Well, it does, again, it does a couple of things that you really, it's a really good tool for building brand awareness, for nurturing your leads in your database, keeping you top of mind with your sphere and your past clients, so they don't forget about you when somebody's saying, hey, I'm thinking about buying or selling. If they're seeing you on a regular basis on their favorite websites that they visit, then they're not going to forget about you. So it's really good as a part of that whole overall strategy to touch people X number of times. And really, we'll get into the number of times you can touch people, because it's the most cost-effective way of doing it. which we'll talk about here in a minute. But it also gives you a competitive advantage because again, if you're on the top of Forbes and New York Times and Fox News and CNN, and your clients are seeing you there, they're not seeing your competitors there who might all be going after the same listing. There is a huge competitive advantage there, and you can actually even incorporate that into your listing presentations. It also increases the opportunity to convert more leads because, like I said, it brings people back and gives you multiple opportunities throughout the cycle of that person, and ultimately overall it dramatically increases your conversion rate and your ROI, because again, it might cost you it might cost you $5 to $20 to get the lead. It might cost you a lot more if you're advertising on portals, and then just not doing everything you can to get an ROI out of that. Especially if you're spending $100 or $200 or $300 on a lead, to do everything you can to get an ROI out of that, it would be malpractice, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got, well, let's get into some of the stats here. And these are, we didn't make these up, right? These came from places like ComScore or Criteo, and some of these folks that all they do is like monitor stats on advertising, and big brands are making decisions based on. So give me some of the breakdown here.
Sure. So, I mean, I could have listed dozens and dozens, because there is a ton of information and studies and stuff out there on remarketing. But these ones I felt for our industry were relevant. And the first one there from Criteo is that a remarketed website visitor who's been remarketed to is 43% more likely to convert. That really, again, because it's such an amazing way to do brand building, that your business name, studies have shown that your business name gets searched for over 1,000% more. The 26% of consumers will return to your site as a result of retargeting. So again, that goes back to that 90+% of the people that didn't tell you or identify or engage with you, that it's constantly trying to draw them back over a period of, in our case, we like to target for about 120 days from the time a person comes to your website. But again, there's just so many other stats on how remarketing will benefit your business.
I think of this as like the person comes to my website. Let's say they register, right? And because you guys, lots of you guys have these people, or they came to Zillow even, and we got their email address, and we set them up on a listing alert. We're trying to drive them back to our website, but gosh dang if they never come back, right? And we see that all the time. Somebody register, we set them up on a listing alert. That listing alert is kind of that first line of defense to try to pull that person back to our site, to try to pull that person away from Zillow. That remarketing campaign becomes that next line of defense that says, look, even if they're not opening these listing alerts, even if they unsubscribe from them, they marked them as spam, whatever they did, right? I still now have that reinforcing campaign behind that says, look, we're gonna, I mean, it's almost an assault, right? Like, we're just gonna show we're gonna show your ad, your calls to action, the listings you have. We're gonna drive those people back, right, to your website, even though these other things have failed. And that 26%, those are all those people that they're not coming on our listing alerts. They're ignoring our email outreaches and our texts, right? But we can get those people back and engaged and actually feeling like, and we'll talk about this in a minute, right? These aren't like top of the funnel leads. When these people come back, they are filling out specific forms, and we're going to look at that here in a minute. So walk me through what we see on the page here, which is essentially this case study for, I think, one of the first teams we did this for. And again, much like many things we do around Brivity, we don't give it to you guys and ask you to test it before we've kind of taken a dose of our own medicine. So Ben's team up here in Bellingham, this is the campaign that you're running for them. Talk me through a little bit about what we see on here.
Sure. So we've been running the BKT Bellingham retargeting since last May. That's when I set up the first test campaign, and so we're pretty far into it. We've actually done lots of iterations. This was the most recent iteration for this quarter, for the second quarter of the year, and the campaign that we're doing right now, which we're actually going to change out because we're going to start promoting the buying safe, buying and selling safe, is going to be, we're going to replace this campaign with that. This was the campaign that we were going to do before that happened. So now that we have that all, set up on our website with the landing page and all of that, I'm getting ready to launch another version for this quarter, which is going to be which is all the banner ads are going to be driving people
all around safety and how we're helping people continue to buy and sell real estate safely here in Washington, even though we're under a lockdown.
Correct. And again, the tangible benefits are one thing, but aligning, again, just like every company on the planet, every major corporation on the planet, aligning ourselves as being responsible and making sure and connecting that feeling of we are responsible, in the way we do our business, to be not to be a hindrance to what's going on, but to be, somebody who's supporting, us getting through this. So there's a couple different reasons why that's a powerful campaign to run right now. But in any case, this is actually the last 14 days, which is since April, since I launched the new campaign. And you can see that the objective of this campaign is brand awareness. We were really going into what was going to be our hot market of sellers, with the why list with us, why work with us, because we're number one, in the state of Washington. That's, so we were bragging a little bit and all of that. The campaign that I ran right before this was all about getting your home ready for sale. Talk to an expert. That was the first quarter campaign. But in any case, we're running this campaign. So this is actually just a sliver of the overall, which is about $50 a day is our budget on this particular campaign. This one's only focused on our CRM database up here and on the Google Display Network. Although we are running a separate campaign that we're running for the website visitors, and we're also running a Facebook version as well. But I didn't, I just wanted to kind of focus today on more on the Google Display Network, which I'll explain why later. But you can see the numbers up there. The numbers are, so far this month we've spent $826. We've had over 500,000 impressions. That's people that have seen this advertisement. And the database that we're advertising to is approximately 15,000. Once you upload and they match you, they don't give me the exact number, but it's in that neighborhood because it was about a 75% match. So far this month, that 15,000 people have seen on average 33, one of these banner ads 33 times. We've had 762 people click, and we've had 254 conversions. And they're not registration conversions. Most of these people are already registered because that's why they're in the database. These are people, which I'll show you a little snippet of what that looks like in a couple slides. But these are almost 100% form submissions, which is really interesting. Again, these are not top of the funnel type people. These are down the funnel leads.
We'll drive that home here in just a second, right? Let's look at a second. So,
Yep.
this is look, Ben's team spends a fair amount of money on advertising and a fair amount of money on driving people and getting people into the CRM, or they're out there doing open houses and they're circle prospecting. And so they spend a lot of effort, energy, and dollars on getting people into that CRM. And then he realizes that, look, it doesn't hurt us to spend a little bit more to keep that database engaged, to keep them seeing our messaging, to keep our brand in front of these people, so that even if they're not opening our listing alerts or looking at our market reports, they're seeing us on Fox News and New York Times and MSNBC or whatever it is, right? Okay, so let's go and look at the Lewis Group and down there in Atlanta. What are these guys doing? This is a little bit kind of, I don't know, maybe a more a budget that's a little bit more in line with what many of our people would be doing, right? Not $50 a day. These guys are spending $16 a day. It's more in that $500 a month range, right, Grant?
It is, and it's again, because it's only recently have I started offering it to Brivity subscribers as a new product. So their campaign, the Ben Kinney team one was, I've been marketing to that one, like I said, since May. Just to, Ben likes to spend his own money on me working out the kinks. And then once we get to a place where he's happy with what it all looks like, then I'm able to offer it to our customers. So this is a recent campaign we launched. Again, it is a brand awareness and a database nurturing campaign. This is an 8-day snapshot. It is only on the display network, and this one actually has the combined audience of their CRM database as well as their website. And I didn't get their permission to, talk about specific numbers of how many people they have in their database. That's why I haven't listed it here.
But I have seen these guys' database, and I've seen a lot of you guys' database. Like, their database it's not like this massive database, right? Like, it's a very comparable database to what many of our teams have. So, the question has come in from 3 different people, Rahul, Jean-Luc. What is a conversion? That is not a click, right? What a conversion is, let's go over here. So they've spent $109. They've gotten 16 conversions, right? And again, these are conversions. Some of these, this is a target audience of a database and their website. So we have pixel on their website, so people are coming to their website because whatever they're doing efforts on Facebook, they're putting links in Craigslist. Maybe we're running some ads for them, right? And only 5 to 10% of those people are registering and 90% aren't. So we're targeting those people that don't register. So they have 16 conversions on $109. What is a conversion? So let's look at this. These are some of the conversions from their team, from this Lewis Group team that we just looked at. And if you guys look on the right-hand side here at that refer URL, what you see, what those are is property pages. So these conversions are people filling out a form. It could be the make an offer form, the get more details, to ask a question. If you look at your website and you look at a particular property on there, there's a variety of forms somebody could fill out, right? To become a lead, a hand raiser. They are filling out those forms. Okay, it's not, they're not just clicking and we're calling a conversion somebody that we drove back to your website. A conversion is actually somebody that raises their hand, either sometimes for the first time, right? Could have been a lead that hit our website, never registered, left. We're running remarketing ads at them. They go, man, David Lewis is everywhere. Click on him, right? And now they fill out a form for the first time. Or could be somebody that's been in that database for a while. We haven't talked to them. They're ignoring our listing alerts, but that remarketing campaign brings them back. It doesn't just bring them back and now they're on the site looking. It brings them back, and the conversion is counted if they actually raise their hand and ask a question about a property, request a showing on a property. So there's actually a form submitted, not just a visitor re-engaged and seeing your site again. I'm getting that right. Am I, Grant?
You are, in the digital agency world. There's it's called attribution modeling. So there are different types of attribution modeling. There's this the first type, which most people, back in the day, it was the last contact, so the last touch, and you can see there is a column there for last touch. So that is okay. They were on my website. They came, they clicked on the call to action and they became a lead. That, in whatever was, whether it was they were at an open house right before that, or they were, searching on Google or whatever that was, that was their last, that was the last touch before they became a lead or they took action. There's a more advanced attribution modeling, which really is, because of the world we live in now, because of all the devices, there's last touch really isn't really a fair representation, because they might have seen an ad, a banner ad, then they were driving down the street and they saw a sign, and then they were looking at classifieds or on Craigslist, and there again they saw your logo. There's all of these ways that we're touching consumers, and so what the proper way now to measure things is that there are different levels. So there's the last touch people, but a lot of these people, they didn't necessarily they're not necessarily the last touch. They could have been. They could have been a couple touches before. They still came back to the site, but then they left. But then because they re-engaged, they came back like the day later, and again they made contact. They interacted. That is an influenced conversion, is what that is. So, and when you get into this type of marketing, that is the way you have to attribute things.
Well, there's a really good question in here, because I think, I know if I was in Kevin's seat, I'd probably be asking the same thing. And he's like, hey, look, Grant, you just showed us David Lewis. These guys do 500 transactions a year down in Atlanta. You have Ben Kinney, right? He's doing hundreds here in the Bellingham area and thousands, across his network of teams. I mean, he said, well, what about a new agent? Are there angles that we can help a newer agent who doesn't have these, number one in Seattle, right? Are there angles that we can take with somebody like that? Here's some examples of the ads. One of the first things, Kevin, that comes to my mind is all the safety stuff that we created, right? We created that safety page, and the idea that you guys are able to do virtual showings. And I mean, for me right now, look, Kevin, I don't know where you're at, bud, but most of our teams in our 30 locations have some level of this coronavirus, it's in their area somehow, some way, and they're most of them are locked down, right? And so that message for us, I think, is going to be a really big message over these next couple of months, and we're probably going to tie a lot of our marketing guns to that message. So that would be one, I think, Brandon, that we could, it doesn't have to do anything with production, right? It has to do with, look, we've pivoted in this new world, and we've got new ways to help you buy and sell safely, if you have to do that right now, which some people do, right? It's why real estate's been called essential in some markets, is people have to move. My lease is over and I can't re-sign it, and I got to buy that house. So that would be one angle. Grant, do you have any other, what are some of the other ways we've worked with teams, or some of the other messages that where they're not that number one team in Bellingham?
Sure. Well, like Shauna, she actually is the number one agent in her market, but that's not the message she wanted to go with. And really kind of, and I have quite a few others that, again, the Windrow, their message is about trust, and it's about invest in the beach lifestyle. That's what they talk about. That's how they present themselves. They represent the beach there, where they live. So that's really, and I have a dozen others, especially at this very moment, when we're doing the campaign, setting up the campaign for these agents. We built all these banners. We did use our Brivity designer, which is a great way to build creatives, which That's why I put on their app.brivitydesigner.com, which I believe we're still running in beta. So I don't think it costs anything to use it. I would highly recommend it for anything, for just building, a simple, image post for a Facebook post. I mean, it's really a cool tool. But but I actually do a consultation with each agent to really define that, to get that figured out, what the messaging should be. And it does not have to be number one. If you have it though, why not, flaunt it? So,
Yeah.
which is what some of these agents are doing.
Rahul says, what's the difference between uploading our contacts and then targeting them using like a Pixel or Google Analytics? I think that, look, Rahul, so like, I know you guys, right? I know your database, Rahul, and you guys have, I don't know, 12,000 people in your database. You have like this big database, right? The vast majority of those people in your database have not actually been on your website. So we run campaigns to both of those things. And so you saw when we were looking at the slides for the Lewis group, we are actually running a campaign on both of the things you're talking about, Rahul. So we have one campaign set up where we fed in their database, because again, they have potentially thousands of people that are in that database that have never been on the website, right? They came to an open house, they circle prospected them, their sphere, their past clients, they've never been on their website. So we upload the database to get those people that haven't been on the website. Then on the other side, we're also using the Google Analytics pixels on your website to serve ads to people that aren't in the database but have hit the website. So there's a difference in that you could potentially have both of those things working in conjunction with one another. So Grant, we keep talking about like these things are a little bit further down the funnel, and I think, I don't know, for me anyway, and being really kind of engaged in this and having a really full understanding of it, I realized like somebody filling out, who's coming to my website for a third or a fourth time and finally says, I have a question about this property, right? That's a lower funnel lead than somebody that just, hits our Google ad for homes for sale in Atlanta between over $500,000, right, and registers on a forced registration page before they ever see a listing. So talk me through this idea that these are kind of lower funnel leads.
Sure. So and again, I can't make it any clearer. If you're looking for building your database with new contacts, remarketing is not really the vehicle for that. Remarketing is again, it's a branding, nurturing type campaign, type digital advertising, and it's really after you get that person to engage with you through your other types of marketing, top of the funnel type marketing, is really what remarketing is about. So it's the person made contact with you. Maybe they did or didn't engage with you, but because they just came to your website and left, all the way down through, even past becoming a client and being a part of your sphere. That's what remarketing is really powerful.
So I asked you to go back, Grant. I was like, hey, man, because we can track these people all the way back, right? Like we have analytics set up and we can kind of see, so take me through this journey of this one lead. And I believe this came from one of Ben's campaigns up here in Bellingham. Is that right?
It did.
Okay. So just walk me through kind of the consumer journey that led to, them ultimately becoming like this remarketing conversion.
Sure. So I took one of the conversions, form submission conversions, and I just wanted to see, I took a lot more than one, but I'm using one here, and I wanted to see, what their journey looked like, and in this particular user contact in the database, they became a lead on the bktwashington.com website. When they registered, they were automatically set up for listing alerts, and they were also added to the 10 days of pain auto plan that they have set up in their CRM. The user actually looked at 11 properties in the first couple of days. So the first couple of days, they were pretty engaged, but didn't respond to any of the auto plan interactions that the texts, the emails, and the call tasks.
Here, I want to pause right there. I want to pause right there for a second, because this is a really important point. Our teams do a really good job on the 10 days of pain, right? And in our 10 days of pain, and we gave it out to everybody yesterday. And if you guys don't have the Ben Kinney team 10 days of pain, like go into Masterminds group and ask for it, and I'll share it with you. But it has, I want to say there's only like 4 calls the agent ends up making throughout those first, and it's actually 14 days. But between texts and emails, I think there's 20. So this person ignored some call, and I want to say it's 11 texts and 9 emails, or 12 texts and 8 emails, something like that. They ignored 12 texts, 8 emails, didn't answer the phone when we called them 4 different times, right? And at that point, it's 28 days later before we get down to the 4th line here, where they finally re-engaged our remarketing campaign. But they had gone through the 14 days of the 10 days of pain. They had been totally non-responsive, right? Like, that is in our world, what we would have done is we would have set a reminder for 30 days out, left them on the listing alert, and hopefully our agent wasn't too bogged down by new leads or working his business. 30 days from now, they would have tried another call on this person, right? Well, guys, I've seen a lot of your databases. The reality is, most of you guys, after that 10 days of pain's over, you're lucky if you get another call or 2 into that lead. It just kind of withers away and dies. And one day you think to call it a year from now, and they tell you, yeah, we found a house. We went to an open house. It was amazing. The agent treated us really well. I mean, this is a very common thing. The first 3 steps we see in here is ridiculously common as we think about somebody who comes to our website, but maybe isn't buying for 3 months or for 6 months or for 9 months, right? So, all right, Grant, so pick up. He looked at 11 properties. He totally ignored the all-out assault we gave this guy in the first 14 days. Then what happened?
Well, it was actually the Bellingham Herald banner ad at the top of the dimension was the top one, and 28 days later, they clicked on it, and the user then engaged in further home searches and looked at a number of properties and ended up submitting an inquiry for a scheduled showing on a specific property. It actually was a question that are we allowed to see homes, yet, or something to that effect, because we really like this house and want to see it. And so that's a good example of, again, the down the funnel type of form submission leads that this produces, and re-engaging people, keeping in front of, staying in front of those people. I mean, who knows how many real estate sites and other contacts they might have had. If we weren't in the coronavirus period, they could be out at open houses. There's just a ton of different distractions going on that could have sidetracked them to work with whoever was that opportune agent who happened to be in the right place at the right time. And because of the banner ads, that person saw lots of banner ads over that period of time.
Yeah, over 28 days we were, because that one campaign that we were looking at earlier was a 14-day look at Ben's at what we were running, and those people had been hit 33 times on average, each one of those people in that campaign over 14 days. So you can assume at that similar rates, this guy saw 60 ads. Like, the Ben Kinney team was getting pounded into this guy's head on the Bellingham Herald and on ESPN.com and kind of wherever this guy was going, right? All right, so guys, listen, like, we can get you some of these, right? You run a remarketing campaign, we will get conversions, right? We will get people raising their hand and filling out forms, but that is not that's not all that this thing gives you access to, right? Like, so how can you further leverage this, Grant?
Well, taking the screenshots of these major websites and building that into your listing presentation. Again, it's a strong competitive advantage, and it's impressive that you are advertising to, the buyers in the market where they spend their time. Not just on Facebook ads, but on tier one websites that people spend a lot of their time, whether it's news or looking at sports stuff, like you said, or health and fitness things, or their local sites, even Yahoo, MSN. There's the list goes on and on. Google's exposure or network is almost includes every single major website on the internet. It also, by the way,
Expireds and FSBOs. Sorry, you were going to button up that last thought?
I was just gonna also say their network also includes in-app stuff. So, if you're playing Candy Crush, the free version,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to put up with, if you're in Bellingham and you've are in our database or came by the website, you're gonna have to put up with Ben Kinney ads while you're playing.
So like using this as a reinforcement to expireds or FSBOs that you've been calling over the years and getting into the database, great opportunity there. This plant the seed, like I added this one to Grant's deck. Does everybody on the call know what your reticular activator is? Grant mentioned it earlier, but for those of you that don't, your reticular activator is that. So like I'm gonna buy a car, right? And I go out and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna buy a black Pathfinder, right? And so I go to the lot and I look at black Pathfinders. I'm like, I'm not gonna buy one today, but I got black Pathfinders on my mind. When I leave the lot and I like drive out around Bellingham here, I all of a sudden I've seen more black Pathfinders than I've ever noticed before, right? Like my reticular activator is turned on. And so what this does, and this is kind of goes in conjunction with the point below that, lower the defenses of our database as we prospect. This came from Ryan Gregg. Ryan's one of our agents here in Bellingham. In fact, him and Anthony are now the kind of the co-team leaders of Ben's Bellingham operation. What Anthony had said to Grant was, since we've been running this campaign, in a normal week, right? I mean, he's calling hundreds and hundreds of people in his business. In a normal week, he gets a lot more, wait, who? Right? Like, hey, this is Ryan Gregg with the Ben Kinney team. Who? And he said, like, since we've been running these campaigns for them, we've been running these for a while for these guys up here in Bellingham now, there's just a lot less who's, right? Because that person he's calling in the database every 14 days is on average seeing our marketing 33 times. So even if at the front of their brain, the Ben Kinney team is not like on their tongue, somewhere in that little brain of theirs, or I'm talking about myself, I got a little brain. Somewhere in this little brain of ours, right? The Ben Kinney team is floating around in there. We've seen it everywhere we've gone over those last 14 days. So this idea of like turning the reticular activator, turning them on to your business, and then obviously in our world, we're reinforcing that with reaches out to the database, phone calls when they, obviously fill a form out, we're calling them and texting them until we get them on the phone. But it's lowering the defenses of these people as we prospect into the database.
Yeah, I mean, even in an open house, one of the agents told me, that they'll ask somebody, hey, are you familiar with the Ben Kinney team? And I happen to work, on the same floor with them, so I get to speak with them a lot. So I get a lot of their stories because I'm always asking, for feedback. And the agent said, they said that when they ask people questions like that, most of the time they get yeah, I see you guys everywhere, because they do see them everywhere. Like you said, in a given month, just on Google alone, they're probably gonna see about 60 ads on average, 2 ads a day, and that doesn't include what we're marketing to the same type of campaign on Facebook.
All right, so let's go along here. So, Grant, we talked about this more than I thought we would. All right, so let's say somebody wanted it, like when you set out to do this, we're gonna walk them through kind of 5 parts here that you'd kind of have to figure out, right? And look, you did this at some point here when Ben came to you and said, hey, we want to start doing this. Like, this is kind of the process you walk through, right?
Yeah, so I'm as when I first was setting, creating this when you guys asked me to do a webinar with you on it, I was thinking, okay, I'm gonna walk people step by step how to set one up. But as I started to think about that and started to actually build those slides, I was like, this is actually would be a 5-part webinar, not not something I can do in one webinar, because there's quite a few moving parts, that things that have to take place in order to get one up and running. So I'm just going to kind of cover the overview, and really the 5 main parts that have to, and what the steps are in each of those parts. We might do some more educational tutorial type stuff, but we're not doing that today. So part one is, you need to select a remarketing platform to build and manage your campaigns. Now you can, for instance, go directly to Facebook and create, build your custom audience and get the pixel and all that stuff and get it all set up there to, and then build a campaign. And some people are capable of doing that. But as anyone knows, some people have a hard time just boosting a post. So if you are that person, this probably, unless you have a really good marketing manager or somebody who's technical, it doesn't matter which one of these platforms. Some of them are a lot more advanced than others, but you do have to have whatever that vehicle is for remarketing, and have to decide on that. I've pretty much tested all of them, and I still always prefer to use Google and Facebook directly, but that's something you kind of have to figure out. And some people, I'll be talking with them, and they've used AdWorks, for instance. Well, AdWorks, is a really simple, easy to use thing, but it's pretty structured in the way you set up an ad, and it's more of a business card type ad. So it's a lot of agents that I've talked to where they didn't like that part, even though it was really simple to use. Probably one of the simpler ones. But first thing you have to do, like I said, is decide, are you going to use Google and Facebook directly, or one of the advanced management systems. Secondly is you have to set up your account. You have to set everything up. Even if it's Google and Facebook, you have to get an ad account set up, and in your business manager set up and all of that. I highly recommend, after signing up with it, or even before, is reading the getting started tutorials, because you look at a lot of things, and again, it's, unless you're really technical. Even when I do these things, I go to YouTube and I watch training videos, and I make sure I know what I'm doing before I get started. Then, of course, connecting and configuring all of the marketing platforms, to your accounts. There's things you got to set up, and permissional things that have to take place. And then step 3.
I'll get there. Go. Step 3.
Yeah. Part 3. Sorry. So part 3 is creating your ads. So I mentioned it earlier. We have the Brivity designer, which is a great, easy to use tool. I highly recommend every single agent and team should be using it, because it's a lot of things. It's not just banner ads. You can again, it's got every kind of size and dimension, and once you get your assets kind of situated in there with your color scheme and your favorite photos that you like to use, and logos and all of that, and it's all, it pretty much, you can pull any other type of ad into it, and it will give you, you might have to make a few adjustments here and there by moving something, or maybe you want your logo to be bigger, or things like that. But really, it kind of does all the heavy lifting in order to get really beautifully beautiful graphics done. That is the tool we use. All of those banners you saw, myself and my team used the designer for that. You do need 6 banner ads minimum for the Google Display Network. I didn't list them all here, but if you just Google, size specifications for Google Display, you will get the first site there is the one Google wants you to look at, and it gives you all of the dimensions and sizes. Same thing with Facebook, because there's a lot of different options depending on what networks. Do you want your ad to show up in Marketplace or Messenger, Instagram, what parts of the Facebook, on the feed or on the right hand side. So you have all these different options, stories, and again, all of them have different dimensions and things that you have to deal with. So if you again, Google, the Facebook ad guide, it'll actually give you it's a pretty comprehensive guide that walks you through that. Part 4 is getting your audience together. So you have to first add tracking codes and Facebook pixels, Google tracking code and Facebook pixel to your websites that you want to track visitors on. What I do is I export your CRM database, do a little quick cleanup on it, and then I import it into the remarketing platforms. And then after that, right away, we recently built a enhancement to our Zapier. So we have a Zap that accommodates keeping your CRM database synced in real time. So every time you add a new contact to your CRM, as long as it has an email to it, it automatically within seconds gets added to your remarketing custom list and
so
custom
that's how,
audiences.
that's how somebody comes into my website, they register, and then tomorrow they're seeing my ad. Not even tomorrow. It'd be like an hour later. They left my website and they went to the Bellingham Herald. All of a sudden they're seeing my ad. Think about that reinforcement. That's the stuff that I run down the hall and grab Jonathan and go, hey man, look at this. I was just on Ben's website, and now this dude, he advertises on the Bellingham Herald, and oh my goodness, he's on ESPN too, and holy cow, he's also on the New York Times. That's really powerful, especially just right away to capture their mind, right?
It is, and it takes about 24 hours for it to even though it instantly gets added to the list, then there's a match process. That we use pixel matching process, which is kind of the next level. So it's and it keeps things have to stay anonymous because of privacy policies. The rules are getting pretty as you know, Facebook literally removed everything because of it, all their targeting mechanisms. So
they don't tell us, hey, this guy's John Smith, here's where he lives, here's his email. They just associate that pixel with him, and then they hold that information. They never give it to us. We get it when they ultimately fill out the form, right? Yes,
but it stays anonymous up till that point to keep that person's privacy, there. So part 5, I will also say about that Zapier, that Zap, that even when you're, if let's say you had, you got 6 people to register at your open house, or even your virtual opens that you're doing right now, or a guy I was talking to, agent I was talking to back east, he does, his whole business is expireds and FSBOs. And he loved the fact that when he puts a new FSBO or an expired prospect into the CRM, that within 24 hours, they start seeing his ads. That was the biggest selling feature to him. He just, the impact he thinks that's going to have on his prospecting is huge. So part 5. Try to get through this because I know we're running out of time. Build remarketing ad campaigns. So once you have all your assets together and your lists and all of that, then you have to decide on a budget. How many times per month do you want your audience to see your ads? You have to connect your custom audiences to your campaign. You have to upload or set up your ads that you've created. There are usually some other selected, campaign settings, like there's some geo setting stuff and things like that you may or may not want to engage in and have set up. Probably the biggest question out of the dozens and dozens of calls I've had over the last 3 weeks on this is, how do I determine budget? So that was something I kind of focused on. That seems to be the biggest question I get. And really, and again, this really illustrates, we don't usually think about, the number of impressions part of our advertising, because we're also focused on, conversions, cost per lead and all of that. But, in this realm, it is important. And really with Google Display Network, it runs about $3 to $6 cost per thousand, which is what the CPM stands for. So for 1,000 impressions will cost me between $3 and $6 on the Google Display Network, versus Facebook is between $15 and $25. If you've ever run any ads, go look up what the CPM is, and it's expensive. Again, most of us aren't aware of it because we're not looking at that. But you get a lot more bang for your buck on the Google Display Network, which is why I kind of focused on that during this webinar. Not to say I wouldn't do Facebook, because of course I would, but you're going to reach a lot more of your database with more frequency, what they call frequency, on the Google Display Network. Plus, I believe that there's a lot of more impact when somebody sees you on a tier 1 website versus in a Facebook feed. And it's really easy to do the math on this. The CRM contact size plus your web traffic. This is an example of, let's just say it was 1,000 people. You want each of them to see your ad 60 times per month, which is twice per day on average. That means that that would be 2,000 impressions, which at, let's just say $6 cost per thousand, would be $12 a day, or 360 times. Because when I redivide back in, that gives me it's 2 parts, 2,000s times the $6. Worst case scenario, that would be the budget, that $360 a month budget I'd need.
So it's not like if I had a 5,000 person database that I have to do all 5,000 people, and now my budget's 360 times 5, right? I mean, I could segment out of there the most important 1,000 people that I wanted to do this with, maybe, my most recent leads, my sphere and my past clients. Like, Grant, we can work with them to find the audience that makes the most sense, right?
Absolutely.
So
yep.
Everybody keeps asking, like, how much does this cost? Like, so here's the cost, right? The budget is you working with Grant to decide, how aggressive do we want to get? How many times do we want to show this to people? There's a minimum, because we believe that you probably need at least a certain number of people in the database, and we want to show them the ad a certain number of times. So $300 is kind of what we've settled at the minimum budget. But this is what we do. So if you guys, I'm gonna share this link with you guys right now. So it's this bit.ly link, http://bit.ly/Brivity remarketing. All right, so there's that link to send out to everybody. You guys, so when you go to that link, what you're going to be doing is signing up to do a consultation with Grant. Okay.
Directly with me.
Directly with him. We can only do so many of these in a day, right? And so his calendar, like, I'm watching his calendar on my other screen here. Somebody already filled it out. Like, they're going right now, right? So if you want to just even have a chance to talk to Grant, maybe you're like, I'm not sure if my database is big enough. I've got a huge database, but I don't want to spend $1,000 a month. Get with Grant. Go to that bit.ly/Brivity remarketing. get on his calendar, right? The sooner the better. As you guys come in, obviously
Yeah.
we can only handle so many people, right? Like we got to go set these campaigns up and do all the work, and obviously we have the consultation with you. So get in there, get on his calendar, even if you're just like, man, I got a bunch more questions, or I don't know if this will work for me, but it sounds really interesting. If okay, so here's the deal. I will. Grant, you got a few more minutes here. We can answer some of these questions. So we're done.
I do.
Right? I want to come in
Yeah.
here and get some of your guys' questions answered. There's still a bunch of you guys on here. What do we do? Like, what if somebody has multiple email addresses? Does Google or do they kind of reconcile that up somewhere in the cloud? Like, how does that work, Grant?
Yeah. I still send. I'll still send each of those emails in, and they'll match it. Whatever they match, they match. So when I send it to them, it's going through, like I said, this new process to keep people's privacy, where basically it doesn't match, and then it does actually. One person could have 5 matches because there's 5 different devices that they can match them with that email.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to deliver advertising on all of those devices. So
it's multiple people, but it's multiple emails, but Google ultimately ties that back to one person, right?
Correct.
Pierre says, no, somebody asked, I love this question. Is there a way for a consumer to opt out of seeing my ad everywhere, Grant?
Yes, there are rules and laws around it, which we follow, and there actually is a just like opting out of email. There is actually now a service that we have set up in your privacy on your privacy policy, so, and they can just click on it, and it actually lets you self-remove.
So they'd have to get real deep in there and really have to know what they were doing, most likely. I mean, the reality is they're not opting out of this stuff, right? But they could, because legally Google and Facebook have to allow them to opt out. So Christine says, will he set up Google with the setup? Yeah, when you come to us, like, we don't require you to do much of anything other than maybe pass us some credentials or something like that so we can get in and set it up on your behalf, Christine. But yeah, you don't have to have any level of savvy here for us to help you get this set up. We will handle it from top to bottom. Yeah, we will definitely get the recording sent out to everybody so that you guys could go back and, like, if there's a couple people on here like, I want to try this myself, and so yeah, we'll get you the recording so you guys can follow through on those different steps, and maybe you're wanting to see some of the different options out there, places you could do this yourself. Leah says, what if your market is not local but global? The database has people from all over. How do you target the banners and the ads? Leah, what we're doing is, it doesn't matter, right? Like, if that person is sitting in like Tokyo, Japan, and they're thinking about buying a house down there, and they're in your database in Coral Gables, Florida, or wherever you're at, right? We're going to be running ads to them in Tokyo geared towards your business and why they're in your database to begin with. So we can, and that would be a great question for Grant to kind of explain your business to him and why you have people in the database from all over. And maybe you'd even say things like, they don't even transact in the same places, right? We sell in 5 different places. And but we've definitely got a strategy where we can figure out how to make the ads match the audience for whatever your business is or does, right? And again, Grant can dive into your particulars if you just set up that consultation call with him. So what else we got here? Yeah, definitely recorded. Brandon says, Grant, is there any aspect of like IP addresses associated with this, or is pixels like a next step beyond IP addresses, or?
It's pixels and cookies. They're dropping cookies. Like when they opt out, they're basically asking the opt-out service. They're erasing the cookies that are associated with the advertising. If you go into like that opt-out service and you do it for your own on your own computer, you'll see a list of 200 advertising services that you've never even heard of before that are listed there.
Yeah.
And,
all right.
and we just Yeah.
There was another. I just read the
So
question and then I moved on. It was a really good question, and now Bob, you got the what is this? Oh, here. So John Luke says, so it's a form on my, like, those conversions are a form on my website, not a Google form. Correct. Yeah, we're driving them back to the site. And in fact, sometimes we're driving them back to the site and they're there and they do something and they don't fill a form out. That's not even counted as, you know, one of those conversions, right? That would just be somebody that we re-engage, but and then we'll just keep re-engaging them until hopefully at some point they, you know, either answer your phone and they're a little bit more receptive to your message, they reply to your text finally, or ultimately they fill out a form. Um, so this setup, if I try on my own, would take a solid week. I mean, there's some of you guys on this call could probably go through it in a day. If you said, look, I'm going to spend the next 8 hours and all I'm going to do is, it's my one thing and I'm going to focus on it for 8 hours, and I could probably get myself some kind of an elementary level campaign and be doing things. But yeah, I look, it would take me a week. When's the last time anybody on this call like read a manual or watched a manual of like a product? Not me. I, so it'd take me a week, Debbie, that's for sure. All right, Grant, thanks for coming and
yeah,
doing this. I appreciate the
yeah.
heck out of it. We'll get the recording out to everybody by tomorrow. There's that link though, bit.ly/Brivity Remarketing. If you'd like to get on Grant's calendar to have a discussion with him. Thanks so much, you guys, for joining us today. Grant, stay safe out there, buddy. Wash your hands. All of you guys wash your hands. On behalf of Mikey and Samantha, who make these things happen behind the scenes, Grant was my guest today. Thanks so much, Grant. My name's Bob. You guys have an awesome day. We'll talk to you later. Thank you, Grant.
Excellent. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.